So we all sat down for this one, expecting Brazil to eventually wear Norway down. Because that is what Brazil are supposed to do to a side who has not been in the World Cup for 28 years. And for 78 minutes, that was pretty much the picture we were watching. Brazil had the ball, Brazil had the chances, Brazil had the territory, and Norway are camped in their own half, doing a lot of honest defending. And not always did that defending give them the correct results because there was a penalty that Brazil had in the opening 15 minutes. And then Arling brought Haaland, decided he had waited long enough. Two goals in 11 minutes, both of them the kind of finish that separates a good striker from a great one. And suddenly, the five-time champions were out and Norway were dancing towards the first ever quarter-final. Neymar's penalty right at the death barely registered. So let us go through how a game Brazil controlled ended up being a game Brazil lost. Ancelotti set Brazil up in a 4-2-3-1 with Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes as the double pivot. And with Paqueta missing, he pushed Martinelli into the number 10 role, which changed the balance of the side more than people gave it credit for on the night. Instead of a natural linkman dropping between the lines, Brazil were relying on the two sixes to progress the ball and on Vinicius to make things happen one against one down the left. Endrick led the line and Cunha drifted around him. The whole plan was built on loading that left side and getting Vinicius isolated against Pedersen and asking the fullback to deal with him without help. Solbakken looked at all that and did the sensible thing. Norway sat in a mid-block, stayed narrow and refused to get dragged out towards the touchline. They were happy to let Marquinhos and Gabriel have the ball, happy to let Casemiro pass sideways, and every time Brazil tried to play through the middle, there were bodies in the way. The key part of it was that they left Haaland high and more or less on his own and not asking him to press for 90 minutes, but keeping him as a permanent outball so that the moment they won it back, they had somewhere to go. When you watch the build-up back, you can see exactly what Brazil wanted. Casemiro and Bruno split. One of them dropped between the centre backs and they tried to rotate the ball across to the left, where Santos was overlapping with Vinicius was coming inside. The idea was to create an overload on that flank, get a 2 against 1, and then feed Vinicius in the pocket where he could run at the last man. It was a good plan on paper and it produced a lot of balls but here was the problems. Without Paqueta, there was no one arriving late in the box. No one turning in the half spaces, and Endrick kept getting swallowed up by Ayer and Hagem, who were rarely pulled apart. Norway's passing map was the complete opposite, and that is what made this such an interesting watch tactically. They were not trying to play out through midfield at all. They wanted to skip the lines and get the ball into Haaland early so he could hold it, wait for Nusa and Odegaard to get up alongside him and turn every clearance into a counter. It was direct and it was deliberate, and it meant Marquinhos and Gabriel could never really relax because the threat was always one long pass away. Around the quarter hour mark, Brazil got the moment their dominance deserved. A ball into the box, a coming together, and the referee Ismail Elfak pointed to the spot. Bruno Guimaraes stepped up and Orion Nyland went the right way and kept it out. It was a poor penalty, to be honest. And that is a kind of miss that hangs over a game. Because if Brazil go one up there, Norway have to come out of their block and chase it. And the whole shape of the match opens up in Brazil's favor. Instead, the score stayed level. Norway kept their structure and the game carried on being played on their terms, even though Brazil had the ball. The moment the game actually changed was not a substitution or a goal, it was a decision. Somewhere around the 70-minute mark, you could see Norway stop simply soaking pressure and start committing runners. Solbakken pushed up so that Haaland was not alone. Musa began attacking the space in behind rather than tracking back. And because Brazil were now throwing bodies forward to find a winner, that space between Danilo and Santos was there to be had. Ancelotti's side were stretched, their rest defense was thin, and Norway sensed that the game had tipped from a containing job into a chance to actually win it. The first goal came from exactly the pattern they had been building towards. Wolfe got forward down the left, and the delivery cleared the near post. And Haaland attacked the far shoulder of Gabriel and simply climbed higher than him to bend it beyond Alisson. There was nothing lucky about it. Haaland times his run so well that he is coming onto the ball while his marker is standing still. And once he gets that half yard of separation in the air, there was very few defenders on the planet who were winning that header. Norway had barely threatened all night, but they were in front. The second goal was a punishment for Brazil's desperation. They were now committed to the attack. The midfield in front of the back line had thinned right out, and Norway broke through the middle of the real purpose. The ball worked its way to Haaland and on the edge of the box, and it did not need a second invitation, taking a touch and arriving a low drive across Alisson, arrowing a low drive across Alisson and into the bottom corner. There were still a couple of defenders around him. So it was an outstanding strike from one of the outstanding strikers of our generation. That was his seventh goal of the tournament, and it was the finish of a man in the form of his life. Once that one went in, the tie was over as a contest. Deep into stoppage time, Brazil got a second penalty of the evening for a shirt pull, and this time Neymar took the responsibility and sent Nyland the wrong way. It made the scoreline look a little bit more respectable, but nobody in that stadium was fooled by it. By that point, Norway had already emptied their bench, run the clock down, and were simply seeing the night out. 1-2 and Brazil were heading home at the last 16 stage, which for a country with their history is close to unthinkable. If you plot the flow of the game, it tells the whole tale in one picture. Brazil owned the first hour, and there is that early spike around the penalty. But Norway barely got their nose above the line for the long stretches. And then you get to the 79th minute, and the graph flips almost vertically. Two enormous red spikes, 11 minutes apart, and everything Brazil had built up over an hour and a quarter counts for nothing. This is the oldest lesson in knockout football. Dominance without goals is just a scoreline waiting to be turned over. And Norway had the one player capable of turning it over. So where does that leave everyone? Brazil, there are real questions because losing Paqueta clearly took the creativity out of the number 10 spot, and Ancelotti never found another way to unlock a compact block. And when you dominate the ball for that long and lose it, it hurts more, not less. For Norway, this is a proper landmark. First World Cup in a generation, first ever quarter final, and they get there by knowing exactly what they were, defending their box and trusting that Haaland would eventually make one count. They meet the winners of Mexico and England next, and on this evidence, nobody should be in a hurry to write them off. That is your lot for Brazil against Norway. I will see you in the next one. If you like this video, please do like this video and hype it up. Do also subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back for another tactics room for the next match.